Overview to the Startup Business Campus, and also like to welcome all of you that are watching us online. Now, today we'll be having a very powerful event. Now, we'll be speaking about or having an Ideathon. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering, what is an Ideathon? Now, an Ideathon is a brainstorming event that allows individuals from different backgrounds, skills, traits, and talents to come together to solve and also create cybersecurity solutions. Now, within this period, you guys will be gathering into teams and also having moments where you guys will be solving these challenges. Now, we will be hosting this event as a Startup Business Campus, as well as Sol Black University in Kimberley. Now, I'd also like to welcome student developers, geeks, budding hackers, security enthusiasts, alumni of Security Summit Hackathon, our sponsors and partners, tech entrepreneurs, and industry experts. Now, this event is led by ITWeb, who is in partnership with Geek Culture, Smode, Teller Space System, and of course the Startup Business Campus. Let's give them a round of applause. Now, after the hackathon, teams will be required to write and submit a 2-page document outlining the following, which will be represented the strength of the team to participate. So first and foremost, to outline the solution to develop against a theme or the scenario chosen for the CTF challenge. Secondly, to approach and tackling the problem. Thirdly, tools to be used in the development of the solution. Thirdly, for the innovation, a team is required to indicate as to which of the OWASP top vulnerabilities they will be focusing on and how to risk mitigate. Last but not least, to outline of the skills all the team members will be having. Now, the submission deadline will be on the 19th of May of 2023 before 12 p.m. midnight. Now, through the course of that, you guys will be emailing to impact@geekculture.dev. Are you guys ready for the session to begin? Can I hear some excitement? All right, so I'd like to call upon Mr. Lucky Giteru, who is the CEO of the Startup Business Campus, for the opening remarks. Round of applause, everybody.
It's a great honor and a privilege to be participating in an Ideathon, because these are very critical steps where you get to be guided by thought and practice leaders to build solutions that really matter. Our goal here at the Startup Business Campus is to work with ecosystem leaders, cheerleaders, to ensure that we can actually build a robust entrepreneurial ecosystem and ultimately build iconic startups that will one day be like the Snodes of this world. I mean, I fondly love, what Snode has been able to do from a garage somewhere there in Pretoria or in Swan, if you like, to ultimately being in many, many countries across the world, building a solution that really is, the solutions that address fundamental challenges that, address issues that people really, really, really want. And ultimately, an event like this, an engagement like this, it's essentially about that, following the right path and having people who've done so to come and actually hold your hand. And we are very fortunate that 6 years ago when this event started, we actually hosted the Ideathon. So 6 years later, essentially we're essentially still here working together, demonstrating the power of basically the ecosystem and working together to take things forward. So on behalf of us here at the Startup Business Campus, on behalf of the Newtown Improvement District, which is basically the board that runs activities and that is trying to revitalize this particular space, I want to officially welcome everybody who is here. This is a place where great minds work, learn, make, and connect. And would really, really, really be thrilled to make you a part of our growing community. So one parting word on my end is essentially design. I mean, secure by design. How do we build startups basically that take security not as an afterthought, but that takes security as an integral part of the design process? In so doing, we can build companies like the ones that I've referred to, which today basically are all over the world, secure and also helping other entities to be secure. I want to encourage you to collaborate, meet people, because places like this are essentially about building networks that will work for you over and over and over and over again. But they're also about learning, because in the space, as you know, we are in an industrial space, knowledge-based industrial structure. So knowledge basically is the essential ingredient of success in the current time that we find ourselves. And places like this are really, really awesome in terms of fostering our growth, our development, but also being able to interact with industry thought and practice leaders who ultimately also, some of them might give you an internship, who knows. There are also startup companies that also are looking for people like yourself, so it's a great place, network, connect with others, and absolutely have fun. Remember the words, secure by design. Again, together, secure by design. So we built our startups with security in mind. With that said, thank you so much, Garabo, and thank you very much to the stakeholders.
Right now, I'm going to call upon the CEO of ITWeb, Mr. Ivan. Round of applause, everybody.
Thank you, Lucky. It's a really wonderful venue. Yeah, it's awesome being in town on this Saturday morning, and thank you all for coming here. Okay, quickly about me. So my name's Ivan Rekasik, I'm CEO of ITWeb. Last year, it's still online, I did a scientific breakdown of what the difference between a hacker and a geek is. I cannot call myself a hacker because it's a title that's bestowed by others for the geeks, which are very good, which are experts, which are excellent. But I am most certainly a geek, which is a person that's in search of knowledge or someone that likes to learn. Yeah, the company is ITWeb. The event is Security Summit. This year it's looking very hot. It's the place to be for cybersecurity professionals. It seems that everybody that's in the local scene is going to be there. There'll be some cash prizes, there'll be spot prizes, there'll be Summit's Choice, but also there's 2 guaranteed internships with Snowden and Telspace, and these are some of the best people that you can. I know the bosses of these companies, and you can't find better if you want to look for a mentor and an opportunity to start and get into cybersecurity. To learn and to interact, meet people, also from you guys, I learn. So yeah, once again, thank you for coming on a Saturday. Okay, so the program will end at 1. You have 2 hours to speak with the mentors. I think it's mostly this side. Yes. To help with ideas. Then you'll have a week to submit. The actual event is split into 2 sections. There are specific challenges. Capture the flag, which is organized by Snowden and Telspace. Red team attacks, blue team defense. They will tell you more about those later. And the second part is just the standard hackathon, as you probably know hackathons, where you will come up with your own ideas and your own solutions. This one in particular is about security. Yeah, Steve, who's next, is going to tell you that you're going to get hacked. You should hear it. I hope you hear it more. If you are becoming any sort of developer, eventually down the line, or very soon into it, you're going to start finding out of vulnerabilities, or I don't know, your SQL injections or whatever else. But whatever you're using, there's a loophole. Then there's server setups, and people will try to exploit that. If you misconfigured your servers, you're definitely going down. Then the big one for companies is actually the employees and the culture. One of the biggest hackers in the world many years ago, he was sitting in Security Summit and he was talking, and his big hack to fame was he looked up the company's intranet, he called them, he says, I'm from this department, my name's whatever, and please can I have the source code for your application? I need it. Yeah, a great lineup of speakers. Hopefully some ideas will pop into mind. I think as organizers will decide the final numbers depending on how many are interested in the challenges, how many submit ideas, but you will need to submit your plans. Then yeah, good luck.
Speaker is the MD and founder at Custodian Advisory Services, Mr. Stephen Jump.
So we are using AI as a tool, we take it for granted. is that layer of credibility that humans have for technology, which is the space of processing. Back in the 1980s, you can tell I was alive then, we used to run computer simulations to design electronic circuits. Those simulations would take 2 to 3 days. And was I ever angry when the response came back saying, syntax error, program aborted? Because believe me, that was not a good day. We can now run programs like that in a microsecond. We can now take your response using the algorithms that you're going to be working on these. Whatever you're doing today is a precursor to that smart way of analytics. And the processing power is now happening as you press the return key, or as the computer thinks you finished a statement. Anybody spoken to Alexa and they've been rude to you? Alexa is near real-time speech processing. It has some of the AI algorithms behind it, but most of Alexa is 10 years old. But it's changing, it's evolving. You have access to the raw materials to write and build these tools right now. It's all open source. The open AI stuff now is free and available for you to play with. All I'm saying is, be careful, because I work in the field of cybersecurity. Adversarial threats is when someone is actually trying to kill you. Accidental threats is when I leave the door open so someone can come in. We're in the space where we're designing something. We must make sure that our accidental oversight and error doesn't allow someone to come in and either change the data so it's harmful, to steal our data so it can be used for harm. That's our role. At the same time, we have to be aware that there will be people who will be using this exact same technology because they want to steal and they want to change. People make money in times of disruption. What better way to cause disruption than to convince people that someone is trying to attack them? So part of your skills is to recognize the information that you are processing into your applications. Can you tell if it's true? Can you tell if it's fake? Can you tell if it's imaginary or if it's maliciously designed? By the way, this might not be a skill for your development. This might just be a social skill. Learn to recognize the true origination and the value of the data. Because if you are going to build your own AI engines based on that data, you have a responsibility to whoever is going to be using it to make sure that this data environment is not going to kill them or encourage them to do something that will allow them to kill themselves. So what could possibly go wrong, which used to be, I used to pick on the waterworks, but we know there's nothing in the waterworks. When you turn on the valve and you flood the neighborhood with chlorine. By the way, you can still do that. I'd advise you to try and not include that in your operations, or include the means to prevent it. But now we're talking about information, we're talking about ideas, we're talking about motivation. So we're talking about marketing and propaganda, and where are we on that space? You actually have a responsibility to understand that, and in your creativity, to take that understanding, and I would encourage you strongly to use that power for good. But be aware that there will be people who will be using it for bad, and part of your design has to take that. So what could possibly go wrong? I don't think the AI bots are going to take over the world, because every AI is originated by a human idea. Even these 20 generations of AI platforms that are designing the chips in your pocket are driven entirely by human intellectual direction. I don't think we're going to have totally synthetic intelligence. We turn around and says, are human beings useless? Not for a while, okay? And I suspect if it's going to happen, maybe someone in this room, so please be gentle with the rest of us, okay? Because it will be acting on your thoughts, right?
So my name is Toteti. I'm a senior specialist at Vodacom, and I am in the Secure by Design team. Anyway, okay. So from a hackathon perspective, I know that the theme is a cybersecurity hackathon, but that doesn't always mean that you have to develop a cybersecurity solution. Just keep that in the back of your mind. What it means from a secure by design perspective means that whatever solution you choose to implement, you should consider security as part of that solution. So always remember that. From a hackathon perspective, just make sure that you are addressing an existing problem. So see how you are going to put this out from a feasibility perspective. It is not only about the technology and functionality, but also how your users or consumers will be using this technology and what problem it is solving for them. Okay? So just to talk about trust in general, when you think of trust, you know who you trust. I guess looking at the floor here, some of you may or may not know one another, and so based on that, there is certain information that you will or will not tell people. So just think of it as that, as a concept, and even within your life, when you do know people, think parents, think friends, think potentially if you have a partner, there is still information. Even though you trust those people, you will still share information differently based on the relationship that you have with that person. So what zero trust assumes is that you trust no one, basically. And that every time before you share information, you will still make sure that that person is who they say they are. So when your parent comes and says, hey, how was your day at school? You say, are you my parent? Are you my friend? Are you a random from the street? Are you my partner? And then after that, you can actually decide how in depth you go with the information you share. So that's an easy way to remember it, I guess, from a real life perspective. And then looking at it from a technology perspective, it says that we're looking at the devices, the resources, and the users who are both inside your network. Remember, these are the people you know, so these would be the devices and resources you know, and also outside of the network. So these are people that you would perceive as strangers or acquaintances. I consider acquaintances as outsiders. But yeah, and the reason for that is that you are always essentially on high alert that any of these people or things or devices or resources that are either inside or outside could pose a threat to the environment. It was always assumed that once you are inside and you've been what we call authenticated and authorized. Authenticated and authorized means you put in your password, they checked it, it's right, you're that person. It would be assumed that once you've gotten access into the network, that means that you are a good to go person. You have 100% trust, right? But what we've learned is that that's not a safe assumption, because once you are inside the network, it could either be a hacker that got credentials in an unauthorized way, or it could be an insider, like somebody who works in the organization or somebody who helped to develop the solution, having valid credentials but doing something they shouldn't be doing within the environment. To stop from a zero trust perspective is what we call lateral movement. So if somebody has gained unauthorized access to the system, they mustn't by default be able to move into every other system. When you create your solution, separate your users. So for example, you would have admins and you would have users. Okay, people who actually can make changes to the system will have different access to people who should just be using the system. Okay, and then from a multi-factor authentication perspective, this means that you are able to validate who a person is, either based on something they know, so this would be either their password or something else, something they have, which can be a device or a token that can send them something to verify who they are, and then also something they are, so you can consider biometrics and weakness in your system. So just make those considerations and see how you're going to address that. Okay, MFA, multi-factor authentication, consider whether or not you're using that in your solution and how you're going to use that and how you will secure that as well, especially where things can't be changed like fingerprints. monitoring and alerting. How are you going to detect unusual behavior in your system, or considerations of what you anticipate would be unusual behavior that you've considered that. We definitely understand this is a hackathon, which means you can't build a complete end-to-end solution, but because this is a security-themed hackathon, we do want to know what security considerations you've made. Are there people there as well? And then incident response planning. This is a really important one. When we talk about cyber resilience, right? Cyber resilience refers to not only how well your solution can still work after an attack, but also how well your solution continues to operate during an attack. So if your system is being attacked right now, would you still be able to deliver those services or still solve that problem? And if no, why not? Which is, I mean, if the decision is no, it's fine, but then what does that mean for you as, let's assume you are a business, right? And then just knowing who you would contact for what, based on what is wrong. Always know that. So Steve did say consider what could go wrong, and in that, always know what your response to be so that you can be resilient, right? And then security testing, we've touched on that from a tooling perspective, but there are things like penetration tests. There are things like vulnerability scans that you can run over and over to see how you've reduced the vulnerabilities within your solution. That would be great as well. And then, as we said, education and training, so you guys are doing the right thing by being here in the first place, getting yourselves upskilled, and then we'll talk about how you can then go about relaying those messages to the users. So yeah, that's zero trust. Remember, don't trust anybody. And even if you trust them, still decide how much you trust them so that you can decide how much information you're sharing with them. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This is Tembile Janase from the CSR. I'm a senior software developer or senior software engineer. I'm happy to present to these young people. I'm going to be talking about the big topics, digital signatures and digital identity. So I'm going to cover digital signature and identity, the definition and use cases, especially for the application that you want to propose, and what are we looking for? What are the organizations looking for? Because I'm sure we're all here, we don't want to just develop an application just for winning the competition. We want to develop the application that is going to be wanted, that is going to be used, that can even go further, you know, that can even help you make money. You know, we all like money. So when we're talking about digital identity, my colleagues here have already presented or mentioned digital identity, but it actually means something that represents you. You've got your phone number, you've got your name, you've got your address, you've got your email address, so that those things that if somebody uses them, you're not gonna be happy. You've got your ID numbers, you know, all those things. And the use cases, we can use it healthcare or online authentication, as I've mentioned, even on online careers. You know, some of us, they do applications online, they do interviews online, they do job online, you know. There's no physical office where you're gonna go and present yourself and say, this is me. So this is where we also use digital identity, also to access public sector services, government services. They need to know that you are a South African, or do you qualify to receive this such of a service. Online shopping as well, you don't just log in on the account with someone else's details. You use your information, you use your digital identity. Same as with education, our certificates, they've got our information in them. Also with secure access control, for example, if you're accessing the application at work, at school, or wherever you need to do access online. And digital signatures, they work together with digital identity. For example, if you have to sign a contract, let's say you applied for a job online, now you've got that job, you need to sign the contract. That's where we use digital signatures. You need to say, yes, this is me. I applied for this job and I'm accepting this offer. You know, the good thing about digital signatures is that it's not only just your handwritten signature, there is some cryptography involved that can be confirmed or verified using software algorithms online. And then you put in your signature, and your signature gets protected or encrypted so that it can be sent to the verifier. Either you are applying or you are confirming or you are signing a contract. So on the other end, during the verification, they'll need to check if is this signature the one that we are expecting, or it's some signature that is fraud or from someone else. Okay, the last point is that the key is to use bots or automated systems responsibly and ethically. We need to make sure that security is there. We need to show that privacy is there. We're not just being excited about the smart solution. It is. From the design, you need to prioritize security. Make sure it's every component of the software, the security is very tight. And ensure that the user information is protected. In most applications, you don't just use it without putting your information, without signing in. You know, you need to make sure that all those information is protected. And you should also respect users' privacy. Also, as a software developer, it doesn't mean that since you develop the application, now you must have access. Now you must see all the information about the users. Also, ensure that their digital identity and signature system are compliant with relevant standards. When you're developing the applications, you don't just think that, no, this is right, they can just use this password. You know, there are standards. I'm not sure how many of you know about CITA. CITA is a South African government organization that helps to assess all the applications that are used by the government. If they are compliant, are they going to put the whole country at risk? Are they going to put the organizations at risk? So we must also have some knowledge. That's why when we are developing the application, you need people from different fields to understand the standards and the regulations and the acts. It falls under governance. So we don't only need software developers when we are proposing a solution. We also need people who understand the law, who understand the acts. I'm sure you wouldn't be happy if you develop the application and at the end it's not accepted because it doesn't follow the standard. It's against the law actually. So also prioritize usability in the system just to make sure that it's easy for the users to use. Don't just make a complicated system that is very smart but nobody understands how to use it, and you know it takes time and all those things. And also provide educational resources. Don't just say, here's the application, here's the manual, just everything is in there. You need to provide education. You need to make sure that your manual, your user manual is clear, it explains everything. You do the pen testing. You also educate your users, like do the pen testing. Test these systems regularly. The more you test it, because there are always new cyber threats. It's not like if you are safe in 2023, you will be still safe in 2025. So it's always important to plan the pen testing for your applications. Thank you.
All right, hello everyone. I have 15 super fast minutes. You guys are having fun? You like sitting in lectures the whole day, eh? I'm sure you love that. I loved it with my eyes closed. So I'm just going to give you a few, let's say, theory on cybersecurity, application security, specifically web application security because of the time, and then show you maybe what to think about when you build things like login, register, tokenization, so on and so forth. Okay? Right, so let's see if it can be fun. Okay, so in the beginning, there was no security. Alright, so people just build the things, right? They had their mainframes and they had their networks before the military of America built the first iteration of the internet. But then they realized people could take advantage of that network, right? They could create a worm or a virus or something. And then they started to realize, hey, we need protection in some form or way. And slowly but surely, cybersecurity became a thing. So it was reactive, not proactive. Okay? But in the beginning, there was no security. And then even with, I think, Windows 95 or 98, there was vulnerabilities. Then Microsoft realized, oh crap, we need to enable security. And round about that time, OSs took security a bit more serious. 95, 98, somewhere there. I can't remember the exact, okay? But most of the time these days, what are we building? We are building client apps, right? Angular, Vue, React, JavaScript, it's client apps. What do I mean by client apps? The app is running on your browser. Your browser is actually, without your browser, we can't run our web applications. Your browser is like your IDE, your framework that your JavaScript apps and your front-end apps is running on. You saw you could debug, right? You could debug on these apps, so it's very powerful. But look at the URLs for that. So when you're building a client-based web app like an Angular app, you see you usually have like an API. Who knows what an API is? Application Programming Interface. These days, most of the people are using APIs, right? You know why we use APIs? Instead of the old school where you build this app and that app has access to the database and the front end like an MVC app. You know why we do APIs these days? You build it once, can make a million apps that plug into that backend. Okay? So now with front-end apps, you tend to use an API, which I'll show in the demonstration, and then you have your app that plugs into it. So think of your API as your access to the data. You know, without the data, your app is meaningless. What is the new oil? What do they say is the new oil? Data is the new oil, right? They are making billions, if not trillions, that we don't know of your data and everyone else, company's data. So it's a new oil. So without that repo, or the lake, or the warehouse, your app is doing nothing. Alright? So your app is to transfer data to and from the lake or the database or wherever it's stored. Okay? So you notice with the second one, token-based, which is a new way of doing things, alright, for authentication, right? You have your app that's standalone, you connect to the API, you authorize, you can log in, right? You authenticate it, now it sends you a token. Now that token gets stored in your app. You see your app is disconnected from that. You see it's like almost like CNN.com and that's BBC.com. They're two different domains hosted. So it's two hosted apps. So API is an app that's hosted without the front end. So now you send the token every time. Okay, so let's make another analogy. You have your app, you get the token from the backend API, you store it in your browser. Remember, a browser is awesome for JavaScript apps. Now, you're offline, you're not connected, API is serverless, stateless I should say. So every time you want to talk to the API, you need to keep track, because it doesn't keep a session, it's stateless. So now you tell the API, alright, I want to talk to you, that's why you're sending the token with it. So the token, every time you talk, it's almost like every time you go in a access point within the university, you need that access card, right? Or you can't. Think of the token as that access card. So you have to send it every time. So if you forget something, just remember, the way we're building things now with tokens, once you talk to the API, you get data, you are now offline. The API doesn't know about you anymore. Now you send your token with it so that the API still remembers you're still alright. Okay? Alright, so that's what a token looks like. You see by the encoded part, it looks like gibberish. Can you see that? Nonsensical. But before you create the token, on your API side, you actually build it so that it creates a token. If you break up the token, there's a header part, payload part, and the cryptography part. Now, you don't need to build the cryptography part. You just say, crypt it the way I want it, HMAC or whatever, all right? The payload is the data you're sending with the token, the purple part in the middle. So you can give any data you want to send it with it when you're building your token. And then the header is just saying what kind of security, and it's a JWT token. So great, register functionality. Why do we have registration? Why do we do that? So registering is so that the system will know about us, whatever data we need to give. Okay? Why do we log in? All right, we're done with that. That was easy. Why do we log in? So the system knows about us because we registered. But that don't mean we can use the system because we're not in the system. So we log in using the same stuff we use to register. Okay? Let's do that. Let's do that. And you see the token, right? It's quite lengthy. So you can't understand it just by looking at it. It's a pity we don't have more time. Okay, so now you run the app by logging in, right? Now you should be able to get the information from the database, okay? But there's different kinds of security, all right? We talked about two-factor authentication and two-step authentication, OTPs, all that lovely things. So this is just on the app side. Now you need to think about other factors, right? If you're sending your data over the wire, is my site secure? And how do you secure your site? So the stuff is encrypted on the wire. What, someone said it? Commission? SSL certificate. Okay. All right. Okay, what do you need to do to your passwords? When someone registers, what must you do to that password? Because that password is plain text, right? Okay, now it goes on the wire. Now you have your SSL certificate, so it encrypts it. And then it comes to the server side and it decrypts it. And then what happens to that plain text password? What must you do to that password? When you're building your apps, what must you do? You must eat some hash brownies, no? What must you do? Hash, yeah. Who knows what hashing is? And then I'm done afterwards. Yeah. Who knows what hashing is? Right? Some form of encryptment. But why do they call it hash instead of encryption? Why didn't they just say you must encrypt your password? What makes hashing unique to encryption and decryption? If you get this, I'll buy you coffee. Okay, we're almost done. You guys are doing well. Hashing is saying encrypted, and it looks like gibberish. You saw that token? It looks like gibberish. And it gets stored in the database as that, but you can't decrypt a hash. So a hash is, have you seen when companies, you forgot your password, what do they let you do? Can you? Change the password. Why don't they just give you your password through a secret link or something? Because they themselves don't know what your password is. It's hashed. You can't decrypt it. You can have a thing, but we can talk that offline. You can have a rainbow table that has plain text and hash stuff, and then you can compare. But that's what hackers do. They have terabytes of rainbow tables to see these things. Okay, so now you know hashing, you can't decrypt it, right? It's one way. All right. Thank you, everyone. You guys were awesome.
All right, let's give a round of applause to Mr. Whitman. Alright, so that's it for the enlightening presentation. Now let's give a round of applause to all the speakers thus far.